Welcome to Brave Awareness. I'm Ronn Pawo McLane, meditation teacher, author, and poet, and someone who's done their fair share of surviving. This podcast isn't here to teach you how to fix yourself. It's here to remind you that you're not broken. These are spoken transmissions for modern minds, reflections, disruptions, and sacred interruptions. Let's begin. There is a bunny that has been living in my front yard for the last few weeks. I noticed him early on because something about him was off. He did not behave the way a healthy wild rabbit behaves. He had no appropriate fear. He would sit in the middle of the street without any concern. He would stay put when I was mowing the grass just a few feet away, barely flinching. He was there when I expected a rabbit to be gone, and gone when I expected him to be there. I found myself watching him, worrying about him a little, wondering if something was neurologically wrong. I left carrot pieces in his usual spot in the yard, which I fully understand was a small and probably useless gesture, but I made it anyway. Yesterday, he was hit by a car in front of my house. He wasn't mangled. He looked almost peaceful. But I couldn't bear the thought of him being hit again and again by passing cars. So I got some supplies, a shovel. I dug a hole in my side yard, and I laid him in it. And then I did something that might seem unusual for a backyard burial of a wild rabbit. I chanted Tibetan Buddhist chants that are very close to me. I burned 3 sticks of incense, and I said a few words. I gave him a proper send-off. And I grieved, not dramatically, but genuinely. There was something real in that small front yard ceremony that I did not try to minimize or rationalize away. This weekend, I will attend the celebration of life for a young college-age son of 2 dear friends and longtime students of mine. His name was Justin, and he died abruptly about a month ago. There was nothing anyone could have done. One of those losses that arrives without warning and leaves behind a silence so large it's almost impossible to stand inside. His mother is a therapist. She feels everything deeply and professionally understands grief better than most. She has been pouring herself into the details of the ceremony she's been planning. The order of the events, the music, the readings, even the technology, the spiritual elements. She's been asking a lot of why questions that have no answers. She has been doing what the mind does when it encounters something this large and this uncontrollable. Reaching for something to hold. A bunny in a front yard. A college student gone in an instant. 2 ceremonies. One 20 minutes long, and one 2 hours long. Both of them are doing exactly the same thing, reaching towards something we cannot name because no name is adequate. I want to name something directly because I think it needs to be said. The world has a hierarchy of grief. Death ranks highest. Particularly the death of someone young or sudden or public. Below that, in rough descending order, come divorce, serious illness, job loss, the death of a beloved pet, the end of a friendship, and the quieter losses that don't make the list at all. A wild rabbit in your front yard does not make the list. But neither does the grief of a career that has not yet become what it was supposed to be. or the grief of years spent living smaller than you are, or the grief of a version of your life that quietly did not happen, or the ongoing ache of a void between where you are and where you most want to be. The world does not make casseroles for those losses. There are no bereavement days. No one checks in after a month to ask how you're doing. But the grief is real, and the body does not consult the hierarchy before it decides what to feel. What I did with a shovel and some incense and a few Tibetan chants was not less than what will happen in a gathering this weekend. It was the same impulse at a different scale. The human need to mark what was, to say something was here and is no longer here in the same way, and that deserves acknowledgement. Every loss deserves acknowledgement. The size of the ceremony does not determine the size of the love. And the world's failure to recognize a loss does not make the loss less real. Here is something I teach and have to keep learning again and again for myself. When we grieve someone else's loss, when we sit with a friend in her grief, when we stand at a grave or at a front yard burial, when we feel the weight of an absence that was not ours to carry, we are almost never grieving only that loss. We are also grieving our own mortality. Justin's death is not just the loss of a young man. It is a confrontation with the fact that life does not guarantee any of us a certain length. That the people we love can be here and then not, with no warning and no negotiation and no appeal. The bunny's death is not just the loss of a small animal I had grown fond of. It is a reminder that I could not protect him. That my carrot pieces and my watchfulness and my concern did not change the outcome. That there are limits to what care can do in the face of what happens. That helplessness, the absolute absence of any lever to pull that would have changed things, is what grief is so often actually sitting on top of. And the why questions, the reaching for ceremony, the pouring of energy into the details of a tribute, these are not signs of dysfunction. They are the mind's attempt to restore a sense of agency in the face of something that took it away completely. If I can understand what happened, I can make sense of it. If I can make this ceremony meaningful enough, I can honor what happened adequately. If I can do something, anything, the helplessness becomes bearable. I am not criticizing that impulse. I'm naming it. Because naming it is the first step toward also being able to just sit inside the loss without needing to understand it, without needing to make it adequate, without needing to do anything at all except be present in the full weight of what is true. I want to name the third grief in my week, the one that does not fit neatly into either story I've told you today. There is a void I carry, not constantly, but consistently, the gap between what I'm doing and what I most want to be doing, between the life I'm living and the life that feels like it is waiting for me to fully step into it, between who I am and how that is being expressed in the world right now. That is a grief, a real one, with no ceremony, no recognition, and no one asking how I'm doing with it. Because the world does not recognize the grief of unlived life as grief. It tends to call it ambition or dissatisfaction or ingratitude or a motivation problem. It does not call it what it is. The loss of versions of yourself that did not get to exist. the ache of potential that has not yet found its full expression, the quiet, persistent sadness of life that is good but not yet fully yours. I think a significant number of people carrying this kind of grief have never had it named for them, have never been told that it is real, that it counts. You're allowed to feel the weight of it. And underneath that grief, if you look honestly, is the same thing that sits underneath all the others. The awareness that time moves in one direction, that the window for becoming who you most want to be is not unlimited, that every day spent in the gap is a day that does not return. That is not a reason for panic. It's a reason for honesty, and for the kind of grief that does not wait for a casserole before it allows itself to be felt. I want to come back to the ceremonies before I close. The 20 minutes in my front yard with a shovel and some incense. The 2 hours this weekend in a gathering full of people who loved Justin. I have been thinking about what ceremony actually does, what it is for. Because I do not think it's primarily for the person who is gone. I think it's for the people who remain. Ceremony gives the body something to do with what the mind cannot process. It gives shape to something shapeless. It creates a container for a feeling that would otherwise have no edges. And it marks something that is otherwise impossible to mark. The moment between what was and what is now. The transition from presence to absence. From here to wherever here becomes when it is no longer here. I do not know what that is. 40 years of meditation and a long Buddhist practice has given me frameworks and teachings and a genuine deepening of my understanding around impermanence. But it has not given me certainty about what happens after, and I have stopped pretending that it has. What I do know is this. The bunny's short life mattered. Justin's short life mattered. Our short lives matter. Not because they're permanent, because they're present. Because they are real in the experiencing of them. And the ceremony, 20 minutes or 2 hours, front yard or gathering hall, church, is our way of saying, I saw you. You were here, and the fact that you are no longer here in the same way does not unmake what was. That is not nothing. That is everything. This week, I want to offer you something different from a practice. I want to offer an invitation to name something. If you're carrying a grief right now that has not been named, that the world has not recognized as a loss, that has no ceremony attached to it, that you have been carrying quietly because it did not seem significant enough to acknowledge, I want to invite you to name it. Just to yourself, just privately. Not to explain it, not to justify it, not to figure out what to do about it. Just to say, this is a loss. I am allowed to feel the weight of it, and it counts. And if there's something that you have been grieving, that the why questions have been circling without landing on anything, if your mind has been reaching for meaning in a loss that may not have any meaning available, I want to invite you to try, just briefly, for a few minutes, to put the why down. Not permanently, not as a defeat, just long enough to feel what's underneath it, which is usually just this. The simple, unadorned, impossible fact of the loss itself. That is enough to sit with. You don't need to understand it to honor it. I will be at the celebration of life this weekend and will sit with my friends in their grief. I will witness the ceremony she has built with so much love and so much reaching. I will not try to fix any of it or make it more present or make it less performative or more spiritually adequate. I will just be there. Because sometimes the most conscious compassion available is just showing up and staying. Not with answers, not with frameworks, just presence. Justin was here, the bunny was here. Whatever version of your life you are grieving was real. Whatever gap you are carrying was worth wanting. None of it needs to be permanent to have mattered. It just needs to have been. Ceremony marks transition, not end. And sometimes 20 minutes with a shovel in a front yard is ceremony enough. Next week, we go somewhere that I think will feel like a natural landing after everything we have been holding this season. We're going to talk about boundaries, not the word as it has been weaponized by wellness culture. The real thing, what clarity actually looks like when you finally stop apologizing for it. Eyes open, compass steady. That's enough for today. If this opened something for you, stay close. You can subscribe, share it, or just sit with what stirred. Brave awareness isn't a destination, it's a return. I'll meet you there again soon.